Verzeo. Learn here, lead anywhere. Subscribe to our Verzeo channel and tap the bell icon to receive all notifications. Download the Verzeo app and get free content access.
Hey, hi, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me now. Akshay, if you are hosting this, can you just let me know if you're waiting for some more people, or should we start?
Yeah, hi, Romit. This is Pratik here. Good
Oh, hi,
morning.
Pratik.
Sorry for the
No problem.
last minute delay. Akshaya is not available. We
Okay.
are, I think, not waiting for more people. We'll start off with the meeting. Okay,
Sure.
we'll begin. Let me not take much time to introduce. Like I said, Romit has been here for the last few weeks now, helping us around on structuring the whole GMAT program for Versio. I'm pretty sure the objectives are pretty clear on how we intend to make this very full-fledged program under the guidance of Romit. Obviously, with there's no explanation to or to all of the experience that he's come with, and also the teaching knowledge, right? So I hope you guys would have a great and fruitful session. We're not waiting for more people. This is the attendance for today. So let's begin. Over to you, Romit.
Thank you, Pratik. Thanks for that introduction. So today is sort of a demo class. We decided to do this because we have been doing a lot of GMAT strategy, introduction to the GMAT, how to prepare for the GMAT, and we have addressed a number of questions around that. What we wanted to do is sort of give you a feel of the kind of questions that you will be tested on in the GMAT. And the topic that we have chosen today is a quantitative topic in the quantitative section. It is absolute values and inequalities, right? So absolute values and inequalities, I'm sure all of you, most of you have come across in your standard 8, 9, 10, right? I know it has been a while since you have gone back to those concepts or used those concepts, so your skills might be a little rusty. What I'm hoping from in this class is at least to give good conceptual clarity on absolute values and inequalities. It's a topic that is tested on the GMAT, and you can expect about, I would say, two questions, right, from absolute values and inequalities. And the interesting thing about absolute values and inequalities is that it's not a difficult topic, but it is a topic which you need to pay attention. And GMAT loves to do, let's say, introduce a lot of intricacies in the absolute values and inequalities questions, so they can make it difficult. So you might come across in your journey when you're taking the GMAT, when you are, let's say, if you're doing really well, you might expect a 700 plus level questions from the absolute value inequalities topic. So it's very important to know the topic, get good conceptual clarity. As I said, it's just a demo class, so we'll probably not be solving a lot of questions or not getting a lot of advanced questions. But this is just sort of give you a little teaser about what absolute value inequalities is, and at least lay the foundation for all of you. So with that said, let me share my screen. I hope all of you are able to see my screen. Okay. So yeah, let's begin. This is one slide that I always throw up in any of my presentations. Any of you who's attending, anybody who's attending this session for the first time, uh, it's good to give you a sense of how the GMAT exam is formatted. So it has got four sections: the AWA, the IR section, which of course doesn't contribute to the score of 800. And then you have got the two sections, the quantitative and the verbal, which are adaptive sections, and these two sections also contribute to a score of 800. Quantitative is about 31 questions, 62 minutes, about 2 questions per minute. Verbal is 36 multiple choice questions, about 65. The section time is 65 minutes. So you get about 1 minute 30 to 1 minute 40 seconds per question, totally doable with the right kind of practice. Having said that, as I said, today we are going to look at absolute values and inequalities topic, and we are going to do a few questions from there. So what is the, so you've come across this notation, right? Most of you have come across this notation. What is the meaning of modulus of x? When somebody says modulus of x, you often come across this in questions. If you are already solving GMAT questions from anywhere, you have come across this notation, mod of x, right? This pipe x and then a closing pipe. This is basically called mod of x, which is also trying to point out that this is trying to get the absolute value of x. What does the absolute value of x mean? So the absolute value of x, I'll get into a little bit of scribbling when I get into the number line representation. The absolute value of x is, think of it as the distance of x from 0 on the number line, right? The distance of x from 0 on the number line. Now, I'll get to the next slide where I can do a little bit of scribbling so that you can understand this. And unfortunately, I have to get away from the full screen because the presentation mode won't let me scribble. Okay. So when we say what is modulus of x, and I just said that modulus of x is the distance of x from point 0 on the number line. Okay. So if I say mod of 5, what does that mean? If you draw a number line, and excuse my drawing skills here, I'm using a pad, electronic pad to draw in it. It'll not be that good. But let's say this is 1, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, and this is 5. And on the negative axis, this is -1, this is -2, this is -3, this is -4, and this is -5. So if I ask you, which are the points that are exactly at a distance of 5 from the point 0 on the number line, right? You will have to say this point as well as this point, right? It doesn't matter whether this is in the positive axis or it's the negative axis. Remember, I'm talking of the distance, and the distance is, think of it as a scalar value. It doesn't have a sign. So it's just like if I tell you that this is where your home is located, right? And I tell you that, can you tell me, and this is, let's say, the east facing street, and this is the west facing street. I tell you, can you tell me like 2 points which are exactly a distance of 5 kilometers from your home? You have to go on either directions. You have to tell me that, okay, on the east side, let's say at exactly the 5 kilometer sort of point, there is this, let's say, restaurant. Okay, there's this restaurant, and on the west side, exactly at a distance of 5 kilometers, let's say there is this hospital. So what we are trying to say is, we are trying to identify the points which are exactly at a distance of x from the point 0 on the number line, right? And because it is a distance, it is always going to be positive. It is, we are talking of the absolute value of the distance, right? So which means that anytime I write +5, this tantamounts to 5. Anytime I write -5, the absolute value of -5 is also 5. So always remember this, commit this to memory. Think of this as the distance of the point, distance of a particular point from 0 on the number line. So the distance is always going to be positive. Whether it's in either direction, it does not matter, right? So this is pretty much the sort of implication of absolute values on whenever you think of what is the physical significance of absolute values, why are we even doing this? Think of this as the distance of the point x from the point 0 on the number line. And distance is an absolute measurement. It does not have a positive or negative sign. So therefore, it's always going to be positive, right? So the point is, modulus of 5 is 5, modulus of -5 is also 5. So essentially, if you think of it, the modulus of anything is always going to be greater than or equals to 0. Why I say that? The lowest value it can have is mod 0 is 0, mod 1 is 1, Mod of -1 is also 1. So think of all the numbers that you can sort of cook up together in an example. You'll find that the lowest value of a mod of anything will have to be 0 and above, right? And anything, any day, any other modulus, any other value of modulus will always be positive. So the modulus of anything, right? Modulus of a value is always greater than or equals to 0. Think of -100, minus 100. Okay, the modulus of that will be 100, right? So the least value of modulus of any value will be 0, and all other values can be positive, right? So this is also sort of, think of this as an identity, a property. All commit this to memory. This is going to be useful for you to sort of dissect many problems, right? So let me create a new, let me create a new slide here. Okay, before we get to the problems, just stay with me here. I'm just going to make the background white so that it allows me to do good sort of. Okay, now we have spoken about what happens when I say modulus of x equals to 5. Okay, we know that we can say that what is the value of x in that case, plus or minus 5. Okay, modulus of x is always positive, but what is the underlying value of x in that case? The underlying value of x could be plus or minus 5, right? Don't confuse this with, as I just said, modulus of something is always positive, or like basically greater than or equal to 0. That is the modulus value of it. The underlying value for which the modulus is operating on, that could be plus or minus, right? So when I say that x is modulus of x is 5, as I said, think of this as the 2 points on the number line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 1 point, this is one solution, and the other solution is this, right? So the 2 points that satisfy this the modulus condition, that modulus of x is 5, is x is plus 5 and x is minus 5. Okay, now this is talking about I've just described what a modulus with a equality sign, how to treat that, how to solve that, how do you treat a modulus with an equality sign. Now if I were to give you, let's say, modulus of x is less than 3, what is the solution for that, right? So modulus of x less than 3, okay, this means we have to find out all the points on the number line where the distance from the point 0 is less than 3. So what will be those points? If you think of this as the number line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. Okay, what are those points that are at a distance of less than 3 from the point 0? So this on the positive x-axis, on the right hand side, if you go to the right side of 0, this could be 1, this could be 2, this could be, well, not 3, because I'm saying less than 3. So till about, let's say, 2.999, whatever is that number. Now the interesting part is I have also not mentioned that x is an integral value, that x is an integer. So x could also be 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, could be 1.6, 2.5, whatever. So basically any point to the right of 0 till just short of the just short of 0.3. Okay, just short of the exact value of 3. It could go all the way up to 2.9999, like infinitesimally, just stopping just before 3, right? So all these points are at a distance of less than 3 from the point 0 on the number line. Similarly, I can use the same logic to the left side of 0. I could basically shade this entire area, right? Just falling short of -3. So essentially, I can say that my solution for this set is x is greater than 3 and x is greater than -3 and x is less than 3, right? So this is how you can sort of directly infer, whenever you are given modulus of x is less than 3, you can directly infer that the solution set will be between the two extremes, -3 and +3, take this value, put a minus against 1 and plus against 1, and the x will be fit directly under inside of this, right? Can somebody like take a shot at if this is x, mod of x is less than 3, what would be the solution set, right? Again, think of this as the distance of what are those points that lie at a distance of greater than 3 from the point 0 on the number line, which is basically, if I draw the number line again, which is just going to be the opposite of the previous solution. So you take this, and anything to the right of this is at a distance of greater than 3 from the point 0, right? Similarly, if I go to the left hand side, this will be all these points here, right, which are at a distance of greater than 3 from the point 0 on the number line. So what is my solution set in case of, if I say modulus of x is greater than 3, it is x less than minus 3, or it's very important, or x is greater than 3. So x will be either on this right side to the right of 3 or on the left side to the left of minus 3. Okay, I hope sorry, I didn't mean to cross that off. I was trying to create a, yeah. Scribbling can be a little tricky sometimes. Yeah, it can get dirty, but I guess it still works. Okay, so these are sort of simple identities, sort of properties that you need to remember if you are solving absolute value problems on your exam day. You should not have to think through. If somebody, again, let me open Microsoft whiteboard here. So as I was saying, this is a little better for scribbling. If I say modulus of x, we have now learned modulus of x less than 3. What is the solution set? Minus 3x less than 3. On the other hand, other side, if I say modulus of x greater than 3, what is the solution set? X is greater than 3 or x is less than minus 3. Okay. Similarly, if I just add a level of complexity to this, if I say modulus of x minus 5 is less than 3, how do you solve it? You do the same thing here. You put minus 3 here, plus 3 here, and you just take it out of mod. This is what we have done here, right? I've taken minus 3 here, plus 3 here, and x would lie between minus 3 and plus 3. Similarly, I will take minus 3 here, plus 3 here, and x minus 5 would now lie between minus 3 and plus 3. Now, how do I solve? Now, x has minus 5. What I'll do is I'll add plus 5 on all three sides. So minus 3 plus 5, x minus 5 plus 5, and plus 3 plus 5. So this is like what, 2? This is x, this is 8. So the solution for this is x has to lie between 2 and 8. So this is the solution for this problem. Similarly, same way, if I say 2x minus 1 is greater than 3, what is the solution set for that? I'll just take this, right, this general identity, and I'll extend it here. So how do I solve it? So this 2x minus 1 will be either greater than 3, or, so I've sent mod of 2x minus 1 is greater than 3, or, so the two solutions will be 2x minus 1 greater than 3 or 2x minus 1 less than minus 3. Okay, so now I can solve for x. So 2x is greater than 4 or x is greater than 2 is one of the solutions, or I can just say 2x less than, what is this, minus 2, or x is less than minus 1. So the solution will either lie at a point which is x greater than 2. So if I plot it on the number line, again, sorry for my terrible drawing, minus 1, minus 2. So x will either lie to the right of 2 or x will lie to the left of minus 1. So this is the solution set. In this, on the left hand side, I can do a similar exercise. I can do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, 8, 9, right? Minus 1, minus 2, not important, because I know the solution set is between an x and 8, but not including x and 8. So the solution will lie somewhere over here. Okay. if it includes, if I just add let's say a less than or equal to, will it change anything in terms of the solution? No. I'll just add the less than or equal to symbol here. I'll convert the less than to a less than or equal to, and instead of excluding the 2 and 8 in this case, I will also include the 2 and 8. Okay, so I'll just fill it out all the way to 8. I'll not use those sort of circles, the hollow circles, and shade outside of that. I'll include both 2 and 8, right? So this is exactly, these are the principles that you need to that you need to solve an absolute value problem, right? Now let me talk about inequalities and how absolute value and inequalities are sort of, they are very closely coupled. They're like cousins. They always come together, right? In a certain problem, you'll always be dealing with absolute values, inequalities, along with a quadratic sort of form, right? So you might come across something like x square is less than x square is less than 9. Okay, how do you solve for that? Okay, so there are, I mean, conceptually there are a couple of ways to solve it. You can just say x square minus 9 is less than 0, and then you can say x minus 3 into x plus 3 is less than 0. Okay, so now what you do is, when you solve this, instead of thinking this as less than 0, right, in your mind just think of this as equals to 0, just in your mind. Don't change it on your, let's say, wherever you're solving it, don't change it on your notebook. Just mentally make a note that, okay, what if it were equals to 0, then what would have been the solutions, right? What are the points at which this function will be equals to 0? The points will be minus 3 and plus 3. This is my lower point of inflection, and this is the higher point of upper point of inflections. Okay, so now if I draw a number line 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 simultaneously on the left hand side, I'll draw. Similarly on the left hand side, I'll draw minus 1, minus 3, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, right? So anyway, I have found out the points of inflection. So like one point of inflection is 3 and one point of inflection is minus 3. Well, let me do something. Let me take values. What I need to take is, I need to take values which are greater than 3. So basically the entire number line is now divided into 3 segments. One is anything that is to the right of 3. This is let's say segment 1. One is between these 2 segments. This is segment 2. And one is to the left of minus 3. This is segment 3. Okay. So in segment 1, okay, let me take any value. Okay, let me take any value. Let me take x equals to 5. Now, if I take x equals to 5, what happens to x value of x minus 3 and x plus 3? So 5 minus 3 is 2, right? And 5 plus 3 is 8. So 2 into 8 is 16. Is that less than 0? No, right? So any value that I take to the right to in the segment 1, right, it will not be less than 0. It will always be greater than 0. So this is definitely not my solution set. Now I come to segment 2. Okay, segment 2 is any value that is between minus 3 and plus 3. You take, let's say, x equals to 2. You take. So 2 minus 3 is minus 1, and 2 plus 3 is plus 5. So minus 1 and plus 5 is equals to minus 5, which is less than 0. Yes. You take, let's say, x equals to minus 1. Okay. What happens when you take x equals to minus 1? So minus 1 minus 3 and minus 1 plus 3. What is this? Minus 4 into 2. This is minus 8. This is again less than 0. Yes. So what I'll observe is any value that I take in segment 2, this inequality is satisfied, right? And then I come to segment 3. Segment 3 is any value that is to the left of minus 3 or less than minus 3. So I can take any value. Let's say x equals to minus 4 I take. Or you take x equals to minus 40, x equals to minus 100, x equals to negative infinity, any value. you will see the same behavior. X equals to -4. What value do I get? -4 minus 3 and -4 plus 3. What is that? -7 and -1. This is +7. Is that less than 0? No. Okay, because I have to find out the inequality that satisfies that the product of these two will be less than 0. So what I have figured out is this segment doesn't hold good. This segment values do not hold good. The only values that hold good are this segment. So what is my solution set? My solution set for this is X will lie between -3 and +3. Okay. Now, doesn't it look similar to the absolute value problem that I did, where if I say modulus of X is less than 3, right? It will give me the same. It will give me the same solution set. Yes. Why is this? Because this is how the interconversion between an absolute value and a quadratic form takes place. So if I am going to write x square less than 9, I can straight away always in GMAT, you can remember this as a shortcut, as an identity, as a property, right? And I have proved it to you already why it is the case. You can write modulus of x equals is less than 3. So you're taking a mod on both sides. So x square, whenever you take a modulus of x square, it is sorry, whenever you take a root over of x square, it is nothing but modulus of x, right? So if I say x square equals to 9, what are the values of x? X equals to plus minus 3. Can I also write that as modulus of x equals to 3? Because I've taught you that this for the solution set of x, modulus of x equals to 3, the underlying value will be plus minus 3. Basically, what I'm trying to say is any value that lies at a distance of 3 from the point 0 on the number line. What are those 2 points? Those 2 points are plus 3 and -3. So essentially, if I write x square equals to 9, right, I can say that modulus of x equals to 3. I'm taking a root on both sides, right? When I take root over of x square, it is nothing but modulus of x. Root over of x square is modulus of x. Always, always, always remember this. This is going to be super helpful for you to solve multiple absolute value inequalities question on your GMAT. Okay. Having said that, I think we now have some sort of foundation of absolute value inequality problems. Let us do a problem and see how difficult it is anyway, right? People keep talking about it. Is it really that difficult? Okay, let's do this problem. Okay, I'll start the polls and let's say give about 2 minutes to solve this problem. Okay. I'll hide the polling for now. Just take some time, think through it. I'll give you a couple of minutes to solve it, and I'll open the polls and then explain. 1 of 16. Guys, it's time now. I'm going to close the polls. Okay. This is also a conundrum that you are going to face in the GMAT. You are not going to get the option of skipping questions and coming back to it later on. There is no skip questions. Even if you save a lot of time and come back to those, we have to answer something, take the best case, move forward. Right. So I'm going to end the polls now. In 3, 2, 1. I'm ending the polls. Okay. Let me share the results. Okay. So yeah, just gotten 4 responses. Most of you have answered it correctly. It is indeed answer B. Okay, people have done it correctly. Well, good. Let me just quickly take you through this. Right. So what is the value of modulus of x is what this question is asking. Right. So what is the statement 1 telling us? Right. X is minus of mod x. Okay. What have I told you? What is the value of mod x? It is either 0 or positive. So if it is either 0 or positive, it is minus of either 0 or a positive value, right? So ultimately it's either going to be 0 or negative, right? I hope this is pretty clear. So essentially what it is telling me is x is less than or equals to 0. So x is either 0 or a negative value, which I've just found out from here. Does this help me find out the modulus of x? It just tells me that x is less than or equal to 0. X can be 0, x can be -2. In that case, modulus of x is 2. X could be -5. In that case, modulus of x is 5. X can, so essentially I cannot find out the value of mod of x, right? So this is not sufficient to answer the question. What is the second statement telling me? The second statement is telling me that x squared equals to 4. If I was just discussing this, what is x squared equals to 4? I can directly write that modulus of x equals to 2. Okay. This is something that I told you, that if you have x squared equals to 4, you can take square on both sides, right? And the what is the root over of x square is modulus of x, and root over of 4 is 2. Okay, so the value of x, basically x is plus minus 2, but whatever is the value of x, the modulus of x is always going to be plus 2, because the modulus of x is always positive or 0, right? In this case, 0 doesn't apply. So modulus of x is directly equals to 2, and I could say that directly by looking at this statement. I just broke it down again for you guys. So this is sufficient enough to answer the question, right? So if the statement 2 is sufficient enough to answer the question and statement 1 is not sufficient to answer the question, in that case, my answer is going to be B, right? So pretty simple. I guess it's clear now. Having said that, let's move on to the next question. Okay. Now, I'm going to start the polls again. Again, going to give you a couple of minutes to take a shot at it, and then I'll share the results of the poll. I'm going to minimize this, take a shot at it, and we're going to reveal the answer and the solution in about 2 minutes. Maybe take 30 more seconds and just hone in on something. Whatever you find is the best case, take it. Or if you have solved it correctly, hurry up and get to the right answer choice. Okay, we are around the 3-minute mark right now. So I'm going to end the polling. Last chance for you guys to sort of take your best shot at it. I'm going to just end it right now. Okay. And share the results. Okay, so distribution of answer choices. So one of you has answered it as B, one of you has answered it as E. Couple of you have answered it as D, which is the correct answer in this case. And let me quickly take you through this. Stop share results. Okay. So I was just telling you that if you ever encounter x squared, let's say less than 9, how do you solve it? You take the root on both sides, right? And this becomes modulus of x. This is 3, or x squared equals to 16. Same thing. Modulus of x becomes equals to 4. This is how you solve it, right? So whenever you see a quadratic function, you can reduce it to an absolute value function by just taking the root, right? Similarly, a lot of you might be tempted that if I find modulus of x equals to 4, I can also do the reverse thing. Yes, we can do the reverse thing. X squared equals to 16, perfectly valid, right? Why am I saying this? Because I think like many of you might have been tempted to solve 12x minus 3 is equals to 3x plus 15 by squaring on both sides to take it out of the modulus, right? And that's a valid strategy. If you ever encounter modulus of x equals to 4 and you want to solve it, take mod out of the entire equation. You can square it on both sides and make it x squared equals to 16. If you can go from here to here, if you can come from a quadratic to an absolute, you can go from an absolute to quadratic as well, right? By squaring on both sides. But what this will, if I square on both sides, I'll end up with the square of x and basically a quadratic equation to solve, which is much more problematic. But remember, I've also told you that if I say mod of x equals to 5, the solution set is nothing but x is plus minus 5, right? So I can apply the same logic here. And I'm not even getting into the sort of statement one or statement two. Remember, before you get into statement one and statement two, always simplify the question. Always, the question stem and the answer, even each independent statements, is your best friend in the GMAT. Always simplify the question before you get to the statement one or statement two. And I'm going to simplify the statement. It's given that 12x mod of 12x minus 3 is mod of 3x plus 15. I can write it as 12x minus 3 is equal to plus minus of 3x plus 15, right? So I can solve it as two different equations. 12x minus 3 is equal to 3x plus 15, or 12x minus 3 is minus 3x minus 15. Okay, so 12x, I can say 9x equals to 18, x equals to 2, right? Or 12x plus 3x here, and that minus 3 goes on the other side, so 3 minus 15. Okay, so this is what 15x is minus 12, and x is minus 12 by 15. So these are the two values of x. So in from the question stem itself, I can say that these are the two values of x, right? That the sort of the question is asking me to sort of dissect between. Now, obviously, I have to from these two values of x, I have to determine what is the correct value of x. Now I come to the statement one. It says that x is greater than 0. Out of these two values, which one has x greater than 0? Just one, right? X equals to 2. In that case, this statement one is a hint that allows me to solve the this is sufficient enough for me to solve the question in a specific way, right? I'm able to get to the value of x, so this is sufficient. If I go to the second statement, x is an integer, x belongs to integer. Okay, again, out of these two sort of values of x, which I've already inferred from the question stem, which is an integer? X equals to 2 is an integer, belongs to integer. So again, using the second statement, I'm able to get to the answer definitively. So this is sufficient enough to answer the question. So if each of these statements is sufficient enough to answer the question, what is my final answer? The answer is D, right? And this is what couple of you have marked. Well done. For the people who have not done it correctly, I hope you now have a appreciation, understanding of how to solve these problems if you encounter this in the real GMAT. Let's move on to the next one then. I'll again start the polls. Okay, I'll minimize this and I'll allow you to take about 2 minutes, before which I reveal the answer and the solution. Go ahead. We are nearing the 3 minutes mark, guys. Oh, I see that there is some confusion here. Okay, why is this polling not coming up? Pratik, can you help me find out why this polling question, the polling is not aligned with the question here? Because I think that's why students are not able to mark the correct answer. Or what you can do is ignore the question, maybe still make use of the sort of answer choices A, B, C, D, E, and just, I'm not sure, maybe we can do that. Pratik, are you around? Okay, okay. Now we have the right polling. If you guys can see my screen, just make use. If you have already solved it, it should be pretty simple for you to sort of just mark the right answer. Go ahead and do it. I'll give you, let's say, maybe 30 more seconds to do it. And sorry for the little glitch. Happens on an online session quite often. It's quite common. We encounter these things in our offices as well. But I guess if you have solved the question, it should be pretty simple for you to answer it right now. You probably have already figured out if it's A, B, C, D, or E. Come on, folks. I'm sure you were solving it on your scratch pads, notepads, and you probably have honed in on the answer. Just a matter of clicking the right option or whatever option you feel you have arrived at. So I'm just giving you, let's say, a few more seconds. Let's close this and sort of get to the solution and move on. I'm going to end the polling right now in 3, 2, 1. One last chance. Just mark something if you have to. because that is the challenge you're going to face in the GMAT. You have to mark something and move on. Okay, anyway, I'm going to end the polling. So I'm going to share the results. Unfortunately, just 2 responses. Not a problem. We've got one response, which is statement 2 alone is sufficient. Okay, and both statements together are sufficient. Okay. Unfortunately, neither of these is the right answer. The answer is A in this case. Statement 1 alone is sufficient to answer the question. Okay. So let me get to it. So what have I been asked? I've been asked what is the value of mod of x plus 4. Okay, I can't simplify this question anymore, so there's no point in, let's say, simplifying it. As I said, I always would like you to simplify questions, as you have seen the value of simplifying the question and presenting it in a more simple format. That really helps you sort of navigate through the entire problem on your GMAT. But let me take the first statement. What is the first statement talking about? Okay, it is saying that x square plus 8x plus 12 is equals to 0. So this is a quadratic equation. This is a demo class. I'm not going to sort of again go through the sort of entire pace of how to solve a quadratic equation, but the solution set for this is x plus 2 into x plus 6. Right? If you expand this, it will be x squared plus 2x plus 6x plus 12. Anyway, I'm not getting into how to solve a quadratic equation today. This is the solution. What does this leave us with? This leaves us with 2 values of x. X is minus 2 or x is minus 6. Okay. If x is minus 2, and if I put, let's say, minus 2 plus 4 as a value of x in x mod of x plus 4, what do I get? I get plus 2. Okay. What is the mod of plus 2? It is 2. Similarly, if I put the value of x as minus 6 here, what do I get? Minus 6 plus 4 is minus 2. And what is the, I should have not, give me a second over here, intend to write, okay. What is mod of plus 2 is 2. Okay, I just meant to write 2. I probably put the additional mod there. Similarly, as I said, if I put x as minus 6, what do I get? Minus 6 plus 4 is mod of minus 2. What is mod of minus 2? Again 2. So in both cases, whether it's x is minus 2 or x is minus 6, the value of mod of x plus 4 is always 2. In this case as well, in this case as well. So this is sufficient enough for me to answer this question, right? Now, before I take any call, let me look at the second statement independently. This is x square plus 6x equals to 0. I can write it as x into x plus 6 is equals to 0. So in that case, x equals to 0 or x equals to minus 6. If I put 0 plus 4 in the value of x plus 4, mod of x plus 4, this leaves me with mod of 4, which is 4. If I go with minus 6 plus 4, this leaves me with obviously minus 2, and this mod of minus 2 is 2. So in this case, I get 2 conflicting values. So this is definitely not sufficient for me to answer the question. So in this statement, 1 is sufficient enough to answer the question, because for either value of x, the mod of x plus 4 is the same. So therefore, if 1 is sufficient, 2 is not sufficient, what is my answer choice? It's A. So let's move on to the next question. Couple of questions remaining, interesting questions. I want you guys to take a stab at it. Okay, I'm going to start the polls again. Okay, I think again the polls are not aligned with the question. I don't know, Pratik. Somebody can you fix this?
Yeah, just a minute. I think Himashi from the ops team has to do that. What's the issue exactly?
So if you are able to see my screen, this is basically showing the poll from the previous question.
Okay. It's still showing the poll from the previous question.
Yeah, it needs to reflect the correct question and the answer choices. Well, the answer choices are going to be A, B, C, D anyway, but the question that you see on the polling window is different. Anyway, students, you can keep solving it. Is it visible now? Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Let me minimize this. Students, you can keep on solving the questions on your Scratchpad, Notepad. They shouldn't deter you from, we'll keep fixing it. This is a fairly simple problem, folks. So let me, again, around 2.5 minute mark, go ahead and mark something because I'm going to end the polling in 3, 2, 1. Okay, share results. Let me, one of you has answered this as D. Okay, I was hoping for more participation. If you're not able to, just mark something because as I said, you're going to face the same problem, same challenge on the GMAT. You're not going to get extra time. You have to move on, mark something at the end of 2 minutes, move on. Otherwise, you run the risk of not completing the section, which is going to be much more detrimental to your overall score than marking a couple of questions by, let's say, taking the best guess at it, right? So I keep saying that at the end of 2 minutes, mark something, move on. Okay. The D is not the right answer here, by the way. Let me quickly solve this. I was during my theory while I was trying to explain the theory, I was telling that whenever you come across something like, oh, that's weird, I'm not able to write anything. Okay, let me try the whiteboard. If x minus 3 is less than 7, okay, I've told you if modulus of x is less than 3, what are my values? What is my solution set? I can say my x lies between the two extremes, x minus 3 and plus 3. So similarly, I can use the same concept here, and I can say that I'll take the two extremes, and x minus 3 is going to lie between the two extremes, right? Now I can have minus 7 plus 3. This will be x, and this will be plus 7 plus 3, right? So this will be minus 4 and plus 10. So this is basically, and I'm going to prefix this with is, right? Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to simplify the question. So essentially this is asking me, does x lie between minus 4 and plus 10, right? What is my first statement tell me? First statement tells me that x is greater than 0. Well, x is greater than 0. X could be 1, x could be 2, x could be 3, x could be 9, x could be 10, x could be 15 as well if x is greater than 0. But does that, will that satisfy this condition? In some cases, yes. If x is less than 10, greater, like all those values 1, 2, 3, 4, all the values to 10. Also remember, we are not talking of integers, but just to visualize this in this case, yes. The sort of the primary the way GMAT is trying to trick you here is that the one thing that you have to identify is x could be greater than 10 as well. In this case, it does not satisfy this condition. So I can say that this is not sufficient to answer the question. Let me take a look at the second statement. It says x is less than 10. Well, of course, x could be 9, x could be 8, x could be, let's say, 3, 2, 1, 0, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, all good, right? What if x is x equals to minus, let's say, minus 6? Does then that satisfy this condition? No, right? So for some values of x, it does satisfy the condition. For let's say any larger value, negative value, it will not satisfy the condition. So again, this is not sufficient to answer the question. However, if I combine 1 and 2, what do I get? I get x is greater than 0 and x is less than 10. This, if you take any value from this range, this is always going to follow, this is always going to fall in the range that I have been asked, right, to test. So any value of x that you see here, like you can take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way to 9, 9.99. All the values of x here after combining the statement 1 and 2 is going to fall in this range that I have been asked to test. So of course, combining 1 and 2, I can say that this is sufficient enough to answer the question. Therefore, the answer will need to be C, right? For some reason, I was not able to scribble on the sheet, but the answer here is C. Okay, now I'm able to Scrippy. Okay, moving on then. The last question for today's session. Very interesting question. I'll again start the polls. Okay, again we don't have the right question against right polling window against the right question. Somebody, if you can fix it, Pratik, please take a note of this and kindly fix this. Uh, in the meantime, students, you can start solving the question. This should not deter you from solving the question. Start solving it on your scratchpad, notepads. Try and arrive at the right answer so that as soon as we fix the polling window, you can go and mark it.
Is it visible now?
It is not visible now. Let me relaunch polling. No, not visible now.
Wait, I just wanted to check if it's the fourth one or the fifth one. You need the fifth one now, right?
I need the fifth one now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This is the right polling window. I'm going to minimize this. We are around the 2.5 minute mark, which is more time than what you'll get on the GMAT. So quickly mark something so that we can, okay, I'm going to close the poll right now. We are around the 3 minute mark, right? So in 3, 2, 1, I'm going to close it now. Sharing the results with you. Okay, most of you have marked it as statement B, answer B. C, there is one response and there is one response for E. Unfortunately, the right answer here is A, right? So I'm going to again take you through this. This is very, very good question. So what is it asking us? Again, one thing always remember, stop sharing the results. One, always remember something, simplify the question. The question is your best friend on the GMAT. Always simplify the question. It is going to help you see the question in a different perspective and helps you look at the answer choices and easily answer the question, right? So it's asking us, is modulus of x by x equals to 1. Now think of x, what are the like when it comes to modulus, as I said, the behavior is primarily determined by like negative value of x, positive value of x, and 0. Those are the sort of three types of values that I can have. Let's say take any positive value of x. If let's say x equals to 5, okay, then modulus of 5 by 5, is that equals to 1? Of course, yes, right? You can take any other positive value of x. X equals to 3, modulus of 3 by 3, of course it's equals to 1, right? Now if x equals to 0, then modulus of 0 by 0, so this is 0 by 0, right? This is undefined, right? So this is not applicable for, this is not 1, right? If x is less than 0, take anything, like let's say x, take x as let's say -6. This is minus modulus of -6 by -6. What is modulus of -6? This is 6 by -6. This is what? -1. So again, this is not what they are asking us. In fact, if you look at it in a different way, they are asking us, if looking at these three sort of three different types of values, positive, 0, and negative, they are asking us essentially if x is greater than 0, because only under that condition will modulus of x by x be equal to 1. So essentially the question can be simplified to this: if is x greater than 0. So this is what they're asking essentially. Now I come to my answer choices. What is my statement 1 saying? X is greater than 0. This is directly stating whatever has been asked in the question. Is x greater than 0? Yes. This is saying, telling me that x is greater than 0. So this is sufficient enough to answer the question. Statement 2, x is less than 1. As I've seen, less than 1 could mean that x is 0.5, which is a positive value. X could be 0, for which I have also computed what the case would be, and x could be negative. Let's say x could be -5, for which again have computed the value of how this is going to behave. In this case, modulus of x by x is going to be 1. In this case, modulus of x is going to be undefined, right? And in this case, modulus of x by x is going to be -1. So I'm going to get three different values if I consider x is less than 1. So I'm not sure of the answer choices, not sure definitively what is going to be the value of modulus of x by x. In that case, now I have come to the conclusion that statement 1 is sufficient and statement 2 is not sufficient to answer the question. In that case, my answer is going to be A. So with that said, I think we have reached sort of the top of the hour. In fact, we have overshot our timings. I'm just going to present the last slide for you guys. What are we doing at Versio? We are going to take you for each of these topics. We are going to take you through the basics, through the intermediate questions, through the advanced topics, give you little tips, tips and tricks which you can use in the GMAT to quickly solve such problems. So our batches are starting very soon, and we are going to take you through 80 plus hours of rigorous training. And not just that, we are going to provide you with study materials, GMAT books. Also, we are going to give you full length tests towards the tail end of your preparation so that you can assess yourself and recalibrate and get your desired score. Not just that, we are going to hold your hands beyond beyond your GMAT, right? We are going to help you with polishing your college applications and essays, which is a very important aspect of applying to let's say multiple all the GMAT schools, all the schools that accept the GMAT across the world. So contact us, reach out to us, reach out to the Versio team. Wonderful group of people. They're always ready to help you and get you onboarded. With that said, Pratik, do you want to add anything, or can we take a couple of questions from the students?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow through on what you just mentioned right now. So, like he mentioned, by April 10, tentatively is when the sessions are aimed to begin, right? And all of these tips and tricks beyond a GMAT, a full-length test series, doubt clarification, and for like he said, the other guidance that would be available for the applications that you guys would have to do, and also the essays that you guys have to write. So an all round help that is out there. Please make note, April 10 is the tentative date. I have also posted a link for the registration to grab the early bird offer, and also a feedback form for today's session. So that being said, I think that's all from my end with regards to the course and today's session. Are there any questions from the participant for today? If there are none, then we can end today's meeting since we have already overshot our time. All right, I'll take that as a yes then, since there are no more questions. Anything else you would like to add, Romit?
No, I think you said it all. So, guys, go ahead and fill out the feedback form and take advantage of the early bird offer. Right. I hope this was helpful to set up some context of what absolute value inequality is. And you already, if you knew the topic, hopefully it sort of helped build on that foundation that you already had. We did some questions and we got some good responses. And if you did not get the answers right, no problem. That is why we are here. We are going to take you and build the entire foundation after which you should be able to ace it. Having said that, I'll sign off on that note. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining today, and we'll hope to see you in our Versio family very soon. Thanks.